call that we do every Thursday at 10:30 Pacific time, 1:30 Eastern time. Today we have Matt back and ready for action. He's going to answer any questions that you have, just kind of talk about how things are going in his world. I know many of us are headed into the enrollment season, so Matt, I'm curious to, hear about that. But anyway, Matt, welcome back, and we're excited to have you for a coaching call today.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here, and looking forward to answering any questions that come up. Reminder that our coaching calls are held once a week, and this is the time that we have carved out in our calendars. Everybody's busy, carved out in our calendars, and I hope it'll be carved out in your calendars to, at the very least, learn a little bit of information about what's working in other Montessori schools in other parts of the country. But number two, regardless of the topic, we always leave time at the end of a presentation for questions. And that's actually one of the biggest benefits, is that if you have a pressing question that is, you can't solve, it's been bugging you, you can't make a decision because you don't have any information or the right information that you need, it's a great opportunity once a week to come in and ask, like, hey, what are you doing in terms of this? Again, this is all through the lens of admissions and marketing, but I'm happy to help you, give you my opinion on just about anything that you have with regards to that. So keep that in mind for all future coaching calls, that in addition to any topic content that we have, we also have ample opportunities for you to ask questions that may not be related to the weekly topic. So with that, I wanted to give a brief update on what I'm looking forward to coming up in 2019. I am currently working on a new direct mail campaign exclusively for infant and toddler. So I have come to the realization over a long period of time that, if we can make sure that our infant toddler programs are full with a waiting list, and full with a waiting list of mission appropriate families, that this makes my job so much easier when we're looking to fill primary spots and eventually elementary spots in our school. That if we can be very, very choosy and picky about who we're bidding for infant and toddler, making sure that they're really interested in Montessori, making sure that they are committed for the long term. And if we admit them, that those families are very, very, very likely to stay for at least through the end of primary, for the third year of primary, and then off and into elementary. So I'm putting a lot of attention to that, and it being a little bit more purposeful in how I'm going about it. A lot of us can assume that infant and toddler programs will be full, and usually they will be, because for a couple of reasons. Number one, there aren't really a lot of great options for infant and toddler programs that exist in the community. Most are very, very basic, and Montessori really stands out when you have a high quality NITO, high quality toddler community. They really stand out in comparison to other programs. Number two, these classrooms are generally small. You have 8, 10, 12 spots available. So, those factors always, usually lead to a waiting list. But I really want to focus on what is the quality of the waiting list. Are these people that are putting in an application, are they looking for, a daycare center that they would be, happy to go to kindercare, or maybe they choose us because we're close to their work or close to their home? Or are these people actually interested in Montessori education? And are they interested in our philosophical and pedagogical bent, and how we're going to be with their child throughout the day? And in order to do that, in order to be more selective and picky about who we choose to be able to give up those precious spots in our infant and toddler program, I want to make sure that we have at least 3 applicants for every spot. So how do I do that? Well, I'm trying to generate interest, and I think one of the best ways of doing this is through direct mail. We've done a couple sessions on direct mail over the last couple months. I'd encourage you to go back and review those office hours, because I really go through what has worked for direct mail for us. But I'm doing a couple different things for this upcoming mailing. Number one, I'm going to do a 4-month commitment of January through April. And I'm going to do 8 mailers. I'm going to do 8 different mail timings. So the key to this is that we have a very, very targeted list. I'm only targeting people with children, with families that have children from the ages of 0 to 2 years old. And second thing is they have to have a high income. So I'm looking at $250,000 a year or above. And number 3, they need to live within a certain radius of the school. And from that, if I can find people who are looking for a long-term Montessori program based upon those factors, and their child is, 6 months of age, 18 months of age, then I can continue to put them through the process of vetting, which is a whole other topic of conversation. I don't think a lot of people feel comfortable with vetting infant and toddler parents, because a lot of those parents don't necessarily know what they're looking for. This is a great opportunity to educate and to get people to start thinking about what they're looking for in a preschool, early childhood program, what they're looking for in kindergarten, what they're looking for elementary, and really start to find those families who have these young children whose values really align with what your school is offering. So, I'm doing a pretty expensive mailer. It's probably going to be over $1 a piece just for the printing. It's going to be a trifold. I'd be happy to share this with other members in the NIDO community. This is going to be a nice mailer when you open it up, and each family is going to get it 8 times over a 4-month period. Now, is that overkill? It's not. Direct mail is working when people start to get annoyed by your mailers. When I get the first phone call from somebody saying, you know what, this is the 7th time I've received this and I don't really want to be on your list anymore, that's how I know that it's working. No problem. I remove them from the list. I will never mail them again. But that's how I know that they've noticed what we're sending out. And that's really the goal of what we're doing, is we're trying to garner attention from people who live in a world and culture that is has very limited attention available, for lack of a better word. So I am doing that direct mail program. That goes back to a couple things. If you look at the office hours that we did on direct mail, we do have a custom domain, which is a landing page that people are going to, which is not our website. It's going to a specific domain that is just about our infant and toddler programs, and encourages them to opt in with their email address so we can continue to market to them going forward. We also have a trackable phone number that we're using, so when people call, we can actually measure this is the number of calls we've gotten from sending out this mailer. Those 2 things are really important, because if we're going to spend thousands of dollars on the direct mail program, I really want to be able to measure results that are coming in. And I guess I'll update you about how that's going. Again, our goal is to have 3 applicants for every spot. And from those 3 applicants, we can really start to vet further through Montessori parent classes, through the number of tours and observations that they need to do. And usually I find that if you put a certain number of barriers in place, people will select themselves out. The people that are serious, that would be willing to make a commitment to your school, would be the ones that would be willing to jump through a few hoops in order to get into your program. The ones that aren't going to be willing to do that, quite honestly, aren't going to be the ones that are going to stay, because you're more like a commodity to them. So that's what I'm doing in terms of direct mail. Also, one of the things I'd like to develop over the winter break is a specific email program that is related to infant and toddler. So when people opt in on this direct mail program for infant and toddler, or they opt in from any of the other ways in which we're advertising for infant and toddler, that I have a specific content funnel that is unique to them. So I've been scouring my archives about articles that we've written, videos that we have for toddler, looking for ways to send follow-up email sequences for as long as I can go. I would love to be able to have an email sequence that goes for 3, 4, 5, 6 months. It's a matter of creating enough content and really drafting out those emails so that when somebody opts in on your website, you then can set it and forget it, and they're going to get emails from you about an infant and toddler program, which is really, really going to lay out all the features and benefits that it has for their child and for their family. And doing that in advance, I think, is again another way that you're going to get those applications coming in. So if our goal is 3 applications for every spot, that's one of the ways in which we're going to do it. We're going to be communicating with them early and often about why a Montessori infant and toddler program is so amazing. So that's what's going on with me. That's really what's on my plate right now. Everything else is kind of, we're drifting into the winter break here. We do get out for our winter break at the end of next week, and we'll be closed for a couple weeks. I do take some time for rest and relaxation, but I also do some work over that time period because, I won't get any phone calls or won't be interrupted with day-to-day stuff. So I find that a pretty productive time. Our re-enrollment information goes out in February. I'm not sure when re-enrollment goes out for everybody else, but we do February 1st. We had our elementary information night at the end of November, beginning of December. And so we have our applications coming in for elementary for next year, and then we will position our re-enrollment information for everybody going out at the beginning of February. It's always a little bit of a nerve-wracking time, right? When you're thinking about what our plans are going to be next year, how many classrooms you're going to have, what your budgets are going to be. I find that January, February re-enrollment time is a pretty anxious time for a lot of people that work in admissions at Montessori schools because there's an unknown. One piece of advice that I would like to give to people about re-enrollment is you need to be able to charge what it costs to do the job. And by that, I mean that, I want you to anticipate that when you're putting out a tuition increase, and you should be putting out a tuition increase every year, you're going to get some blowback from, a couple people in your community. That does not mean that you shouldn't do it. That means that you will get some, comments. You'll get some, tuition is going up again. Yes, tuition is always going to go up in order for us to continue to offer a high quality program. And you can't be afraid to raise your tuition. That's actually one of the biggest mistakes that I've personally made, quite honestly, and I've seen other schools make before, because you get so nervous about the effect that it's going to have. And realistically, it's going to affect, those 2, 3, or 4 people that are actually giving you feedback that may actually leave because of the tuition increase. They do not represent the 100 other families, the 200 other families in your school that will gladly pay a nominal increase to continue to have really, really high quality individuals with their children every day, to continue to have those great environments that we create, and all the different trainings and programs that we do at our school in order to continue to be a great Montessori school. It is not cheap to do that. Montessori is it's an expensive proposition by the time we're looking at training, by the time we're looking at materials, by the time we're looking at our environments and the time that's spent for that. So don't be afraid to charge what it is, what you need to do in order to have a high quality program. Re-enrollment, that's what's coming up. I'm wondering if anybody has any questions from our group, or Janine, if we've received any questions so far, because I can continue to talk forever, but I'm not sure if that's what people want to hear.
So right when you said that, we have Jade. So Jade said, in a state with free public T through K, and now impending free public preschool programs, how do you participate or anticipate, surviving as a private tuition-based school? As a small nonprofit tuition-funded school, we are worried about drops in enrollment if the public preschool bill is passed.
Jade, this is an excellent question. And it's an excellent question, I think, for people that run Montessori schools in all 50 states, or maybe even around the world. It's actually an excellent question for me right now, because we just elected a new governor, Gavin Newsom, and one of his signature bills, for lack of a better word, one of the things that he ran on was universal preschool. What does that mean? About 12 years ago, there was a proposition here in California, which I actually fought against, which was for universal preschool. And I helped organize the resistance to that, primarily because Montessori was not represented in this plan. You had to have, they didn't allow for multi-age classrooms. They didn't recognize our training. We would have had to become a state preschool in order to really qualify for the subsidy that they were allowing. That initiative failed. But, and that was over 10 years ago. And throughout the last decade, there's been other states that have implemented universal preschool. And, with different success. It's a very, all of us want children, every child in our country, to be able to have access to an early childhood program. However, especially for us who are running a very specific type of educational enterprise, for lack of a better word, we are running a Montessori school. We are not willing to compromise on many things in order to fit in, or to be able to be accessible in a different system. So this really affects us. So there's a couple things that I'd like to say, as I've been thinking about this quite a lot. Number one, this is yet another reason for you to really invest in infant and toddler programs. So let's say, for example, that public transitional kindergarten, maybe there's a program for 4-year-olds, maybe eventually it's for 3-year-olds. It would be very unlikely, in my opinion, if this ever went down below the age of 3. Quite honestly, even below the age of 4, I think it would be unlikely because of the costs involved for the state. So what a great reason for you to invest in your infant and toddler programs. And here's the thing, is that the longer you have with those families, when they start at 6 months, when they start at 18 months, the longer you have to be able to develop a relationship with them and also talk to them about the benefits of Montessori. Most of the families that we have are going to have the means to be able to pay for this. And the question is, are you worth it? Do they want to sacrifice the $700, $800, $1,200, $1,400 a month, whatever you're charging? Do they want to pay that? Is it worth it to them? And so what having an infant and toddler program will do, or having a larger infant and toddler program, it gives you an opportunity to build a case over time. Versus if you start a child at 3 years, 2 months, you have 10 months before the child is 4 years old to convince them to stay in Montessori. That's a difficult proposition. And then we wind up having these kind of panic meetings where we're trying to sell you about Montessori in half an hour. That's not a good way of doing it. So I think the earlier you start, the better. And by having an infant and toddler program that's, even having one or having a larger one, you're going to have a larger quorum of children who can then move up into your primary programs. So that's the first thing I do. And the second thing that I would do is I would really emphasize the fact that for a lot of working parents, a lot of them are going to need a solution that's for the day. And for most of these public programs, at least in California, these are 3-hour programs. And I'm not sure how they fit in with providing some type of wraparound care for children. It's one of the best things that you're going to find in a high quality Montessori school that offers a full day program, is that there's going to be this consistency of practice that you're going to have. Even for people that do all day Montessori, you're going to have a much different day-to-day reality for children than going to a 3-hour program and maybe being dropped off in some daycare center down the street. So I would really, really look at how can you have kind of a full continuum of care. And again, there's great articles on mariamontessori.com. That's another website that I own and operate, from Michelle. I'm going to butcher her last name. I think it's Aspinall. She is a guide at Countryside Montessori in Chicago. They've really pioneered this concept of all-day Montessori, where you have a trained Montessori guide that is with the children all day. So you have work periods going into the afternoon, and you're not really having a daycare program. You're having really a Montessori program that goes until children are picked up in the afternoon at 4 or 5 o'clock, which is really, really akin to what Dr. Montessori did when she was starting her programs back in Italy. I mean, this was really for working parents, and their children didn't have a place to go during the day, and she provided this all-day program, for lack of a better word. This concept of half day Montessori programs is really an American thing, at least in my experience. So if we can go back to, as a point of differentiation, really looking at an all-day model, I think that's another way in which you could differentiate yourself versus public programs. So those are two pieces of advice that I would have. Keep in mind, the hardest thing to sell against is free. Always, if something is free and you're trying to convince people to pay hundreds of dollars a month, even thousands of dollars a month for something, you have to make it worthwhile. So you have to have an excellent program. You have to have excellent guides. You have to have really those points of differentiation that we talked about. And I would start thinking about that now, as these things start to get rolled out. Also, another quick point here: talk to other schools who. I know that Georgia has a very mature public Montessori program, and there are a lot of Montessori schools in Georgia, a lot of great Montessori schools in Georgia. Talk to them, join the Montessori Administrators Association, so you can hook up with those administrators from schools from all across the country and ask them how they're dealing with it. From my experience, I was just in Atlanta leading a workshop about a month ago. Montessori is thriving in Georgia, and they have a fully paid state program for 4-year-olds. And I was it was surprising to me that they were doing so well, because I thought, gosh, doesn't this take a bite out of your admissions and enrollment? And for whatever reason, it doesn't. So I'm interested in the circumstances around each state, and then how they have zigged and zagged to make sure that their offer as a Montessori program is still being relevant to parents. So Jade, that was a long-winded answer. I hope that's helpful. But I do share your concerns as well.
Right.
Okay, what's next?
Melissa has a couple questions about parents. But the first one is, do you allow parents to pay tuition online?
So Melissa, we don't allow parents to pay tuition online. The reason we don't is because I don't want to take credit cards. So we actually require parents to pay tuition in one way. So we don't accept checks, we don't accept cash, we don't accept credit cards. We only accept payments ACH through a checking account or savings account. And really, the main reason is that I want to be able to process on specific dates that we provide. So when we enroll families, before they even put in an application, we give them a document called the Road Ahead. And the Road Ahead lays out expectations to them like, hey, by the way, you should know before you apply, we're going to require you put down $1,000 deposit. So that's number one. Number two, we only accept payment for tuition this way. It's due on the first of the month, and it's due via ACH or ACH from a checking account or savings account. We don't take credit cards. So the reason we don't take credit cards is for two reasons. The fees are very, very high. So it's, between 2 and 3%. And, if you're processing $100,000 worth of tuition, that's $2,000 a month. That's $2,000 a month that you can use to compensate your staff, to invest in new materials and equipment, to send your staff to the refresher course, to do all sorts of things. So I am not willing to pay that. Sometimes parents will say, well, I'd be willing to pay that 2 or 3% as a fee, and that's fine. The bigger reason actually that I don't like processing credit cards is that for a 3 to 4 month period, there's something called a chargeback period where somebody can contest a charge on their credit card, and that money immediately comes out of your account. So if somebody says, well, you know what, I'm disenrolling and I don't want to pay I paid 3 months of tuition via credit card, I'm taking the money back. They contest that while the credit card is researching and contesting that charge, that money is pulled out of your account. I don't like that fluctuation. I don't like anybody to have an opportunity to do that, especially when we're running on such tight budgets. I want to make sure that I have control over that. So we don't offer parents an ability to pay online, which would really be with a credit card because of those circumstances. Now, sometimes parents will say, I really want to get the points from credit cards. And at that point, I would refer them to a program called Plastique. It's Plastiq. This is a service that allows you to use your credit card. You enter your credit card information, and this service mails a check to the vendor of their choice. So if they wanted to pay you with a check, I know I just mentioned that we don't take checks, but let's just say you did take checks. They could go to Plastique, they put in their credit card number, and then Plastique mails us a check for the tuition. And then Plastique charges the cardholder, in this case the parent, that 2 or 3% fee on top of what they're paying us. So that basically takes the risk out of our end. We're getting a check that we can deposit that's cash, that cannot be pulled out of our account, that we're not paying any fees on. That's what I would recommend. So use Plastique, Plastiq. And for parents that are really into earning points and miles on their credit card, that may be a good option for them if you are willing to accept checks.
Right. I know there's also Smart Tuition, which I know some people use. Are you familiar with Smart Tuition?
I am, yeah. Smart Tuition is a service that collects tuition for you. There's a number of different services that do this for independent schools. So that's really a different topic of conversation. This is when you have, and this is really much more akin to independent schools that have an ironclad contract where, hey, it's $15,000 for the year, and I need to make sure that even if your child is in the hospital, you still have to pay this tuition. These services collect the money from parents. It's like you're kind of it's a third party that actually handles all these financial aspects of it. So you don't have to be the bad guy to collect things in some ways. They take care of all that stuff that is can be uncomfortable for schools to deal with, especially when you have mitigating circumstances with families. We don't do that here at the school. That you do have to charge. These services charge significant amount of money in order to do that, and for some schools it's worth it. For ours it's not. We charge on a monthly basis, and Sacramento's not an area where we have a lot of people that are very independently wealthy, so they need to make payments month to month. So we charge monthly, and that's really worked for us over the years. So no, we don't use any of those external services.
Okay. The second question that Melissa has is, do you use or suggest a parent portal?
I have an opinion on that, Melissa. I don't like parent portals. I don't like parent portals at all. And primarily, I don't like parent portals because I've never had success in getting people to use them. I think that if you're a large high school, for example, and there's a big reason where you have to have people coming in and out of your website a lot to turn in homework or to check sports schedules or to get updates about very specific things, that may be a reason why you need a portal. For schools like ours that tend to be on the smaller side, that tend to serve younger types of children, I don't think that they are effective or necessary. I think that, in my experience, a lot of people, we set up a parent portal a number of years ago. Can't tell you the number of times, I had to get phone calls or emails about people who forgot their login or password. And I know that there's ways of doing that automatically now, where they can, reset themselves. It just tends to be a lot of work for something that I don't think is a huge benefit. I think that it's much easier to have your email, your weekly email, be your parent portal. And by that, I mean that you have all the information that you're sending out at the same time of the week, same day of the week, same time. We send ours out on Tuesday. That's all the updates for that specific classroom. And from there, in that email, there's going to be links about things they need to do. So we need to sign up for parent conferences. There's a link in the email that they click, takes them to the web form. They need to sign up for hot lunch. There's a link in there, takes them to that. They need to, they need to request a receipt from the office. There's a link to do that in this email. And I found that, people will have access to your email much easier than they will have access to a portal that they log on to 2 or 3 times a year. It has not been effective for us. Now, there could be other schools. I'd really be interested if there's schools that have used a portal effectively. I just think it's hard. You're competing against, again, this is really a competition for attention, right? You're trying to get people to alter their browsing habits to log into your website on occasion, maybe once a week. That's a really hard thing to do. You're competing against all these other, much more skilled web people who are trying to get these people to log into their website at least once a week, every day. I mean, I have my routine, at least when I wake up, and I'm sure everybody else does as well. When you kind of go on your computer for the first time, I check these 3 or 4 websites kind of in a row. And whether that's my email, whether that's the news, whether that's social media, I kind of go in ascension, and I spend 5 to 10 minutes kind of getting my day started. I think that's very similar to I know that's similar to how other people and parents use the internet. And to try and interrupt that, to try and get them to then, log into our school's page in order to get the information has not been something that I have found to be, number one, easy to do, and I haven't been successful with it. And emails worked really, really well for us. So we continue to use email for that purpose.
Right. It's just like that one more step that we have to take in order to get the information, and to make it easier for parents. I mean, putting it in their email box I think it's more accessible. Absolutely.
And, the only thing that we password protect on our website is the school directory. That's it. Everything else is available. If somebody from Texas wants to check out, our reading list for a parent book club, they're welcome to do that. I don't necessarily have to have that behind a wall, a portal. The only thing I want to protect is the names and addresses of the people in our school. So.
Right. So what about like class pages? Have you thought about that?
So, we do have class pages on our website, and you can go down. It's basically a blog for each classroom. I am not 100% convinced that these work either. I get into discussions with our communications director. She, it's her idea to have these up, and there's a lot of good information on there. And maybe some parents do go on these pages to get information. I think that it's a lot of work for maybe a very small reward in terms of your school communication. I still think email is the best way to do it, and we may change that on our site in the future.
Right. Melissa said, thank you. These are questions asked to us from our parents. Melissa, I'm curious, when with your parents, do you feel like the response that Matt gave, do you feel like that resonates with your parents? Do you find that parents are, not logging into a parent portal that you may have, or you're still kind of deciding if you want to do a parent portal? I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. And then while you're thinking of a response, Jade has a question. Do you still use printed ads, and do you think there is still value in them, or are you totally web-based in terms of advertising?
So it depends on what you mean by printed. I don't do any print ads in newspapers, magazines, the local children's magazine. I don't do any of that. I don't do the Yellow Pages. I think that is a complete waste of money. But printed, I do mail, direct mail. I just talked about that at the beginning of this call. I do direct mail because it's getting literally into the hands. Like, even if they're going to pick it up and throw it away, it is physically in the hand of the person that I want to see it. And for me, that is worth it. And so I need to be able to create a compelling mailer. So technically, yes, that's printed ad, but I would only do that for direct mail. I don't believe that print is a viable, cost-effective way of advertising your school in any other medium besides direct mail. I would much rather put that money into AdWords, into Instagram ads, into marketing, into all those other, into billboards. Quite honestly, print is not something that I'm into.
So Matt, do you have some billboards around town?
I do. I've got 2 digital billboards and a static billboard. And the digital billboards are all of those that outdoor media actually works really, really well. Keep in mind that when you're doing a billboard, and I believe we did a office hours on this a little while ago, you're not trying to sell somebody on Montessori in a billboard. You want to have less than 7 words on the billboard. That's including the name of your school. So, like, for instance, one of our, we have these digital billboards, and literally it has our logo. It says Bergamo Montessori and our logo on the bottom, and then I'll have this interchangeable and gigantic type. I'll have these interchangeable taglines. One of them says peace of mind. One of them says it's toddlerific, which for whatever reason has worked well. One of it says excellence since 1975. One of them says your search is over. All of these things are basically pumping out taglines, and it's about getting your name out there so that when they go home, they type in Bergamo Montessori School to Google, they find us, and they come that way. I've seen so many examples of bad billboards where people try to put everything, all sorts of information, Bergamo Montessori School, open since 1975, AMI recognized, best teachers, best children, great outcomes. People have, 2 to 3 seconds when they're driving by to look at your billboard. You need to be able to communicate immediately, more than any other medium, even more than direct mail. You have such a brief amount of time. They're driving and they're distracted. And so you have to make an impression. So you really want to get your name out there. Having a high quality logo is essential as well. So you're recognizable. So there's brand consistency when you're going from billboard to web. But yeah, billboard's been very, very effective for us. It's a little bit pricey. You pay upwards of $2,000 a month, but it's a very, very trafficked outdoor media. So I like it.
Right. Well, and Matt, I think you have such a brilliant way of utilizing a diverse amount of marketing strategies where, ultimately you've got somebody coming, or you're just out there all the time, right? And so there's not just one thing that you're banking on. You have, I don't know, for probably about 10 different avenues that start to funnel people into your school. And you're so good at that and understanding, how that process works.
Well, if brilliant means trying things and failing for years and years and years, I will take that because that's exactly what happened. And yeah, you're right. I remember when I first started at the school, the head of school had this kind of tagline. She liked being known as the best kept secret in town. And for whatever reason, that bugged me because I thought, we have an incredible program. We've been open for, at that point, it had been 30 years. Why should we be secret? Shouldn't everybody know about what we do? And the reality is that people aren't. People aren't going to care that the Montessori school in town's been open since 1975. You have to continue to put yourself out there again and again and again. And lots of times that takes money to do. It just does. And then once you have their attention, right, then you can start to communicate with them over time, little tiny bits and pieces of information about why your school is incredible, why Montessori pedagogy is amazing, why they should consider enrolling their child at their school or their grandchild at their school. All those things first require attention, and that's what marketing and advertising is about, is getting their attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you think about kind of the modern parent right now and how much information goes in and out, right, of just how much they're bombarded with throughout the day, it's fragmented, right? The information that they have is just constantly fragmented because there's something else. And so you are, one, acknowledging that in your in the avenues that you're taking. But two, understanding that you're not going away, right? Like you're going to continue, they're going to continue to see you in many different forms and areas, and eventually something's going to stick.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to invest in that. I mean, I the number of schools that I talk to where it's like, well, what's your advertising budget? Well, we kind of want to. We don't know what it is. We really don't want to pay for it. We should think it should be all word of mouth. I mean, good luck with that. If you're going to do all word of mouth, unless you're a very small school, and listen, if you have a school with one primary classroom, you absolutely can do word of mouth, like no problem. You don't need to advertise. If you are starting to be a school which has 2 or more primary classrooms and you're starting in elementary, you absolutely have to market. And that's a big ask to be able to say, listen, I need you to spend $1,000 a month on marketing, $12,000 a year. That's a hard thing to do. But I think that it's really essential, and you have to get past that point where you have doubts that it's going to work. It will work. You have to do it for a long enough period of time for it to be effective. That's why I'm doing direct mail for 4 months, and I'm doing 8 different mail drops. That's why, because I know that it's going to take 5 or 6 times before somebody really even notices what we're sending them. But on that 6th time, they're going to say, what is this thing that they keep sending us? I'm opening it. And then from there, I'm capturing their imagination and I'm solving a problem that they have.
Right. So Matt, for the school that has a limited budget but totally understands the importance of marketing, what would you say maybe like the 3 essentials of having that you need to do in order to make sure that you can move forward successfully?
Sure. So I got 3 things for you. 2 of them are free. Well, at least free if you're a NITO member, I think at the $49 level. And this may be coming to NITO members for free in the future. Number 1, you have to have a good website. You have to have a website that's mobile responsive. You have to have a website that's updated frequently. You have to have a website that looks good. That this is your digital doormat. This is the first way that most people are going to experience your school, right? Instead of calling, instead of dropping in, most people are going to visit your website. So the number 1 thing is you have to have a good looking website that represents your school well. We do have a basically free website for NITO members. It's unfortunate that Qasim isn't on here because he could give a lot more information about that. But we've got a great looking website that's available, I believe, at the second plane. That for people, you don't need to go spend $5,000 or $6,000 on to have a website developed. You can absolutely use this template, put in your own information. It's going to look incredible and it's going to work. Save that money for some advertising once your website's up. That's number 1. Make sure you have a good website. Number 2, make sure your local listings are correct. And again, there's a tool on NITO where you can check all of your local listings to make sure that, in all of those directories, that your correct phone number, correct web address, correct physical address are being represented by your school. Can't tell you how many times I've logged in, and we've opened up new locations and it's like, oh my gosh, the maps link doesn't work to this address and they're sending them to a whole other place. You find out all that information up front and make sure that if people are searching for your name, they're going to find you and find out where you're located and find out how to contact you. So that's number 2. There's a tool on NITO Marketing that helps you do that, and I believe it's free for second plane members. Could be wrong. I believe it's free for second plane members or above. You can check all your local listings and make sure that they're correct. And then number 3, I would take the money that you saved on not building a website, or if you have a great website, I would save a little bit of money and I would spend at least $500 a month, preferably more like $1,000 a month on Google AdWords and remarketing. And what that's going to do is when somebody's searching for all these different search terms for local preschool, local Montessori school, nannies, all these other searches that we use when people are considering options that could be fulfilled by our school into Google, our name pops up and they click on our website. And from there, we're able to capture their information, their email address, get them to schedule a tour. And the more tours you have, the more applications you're going to receive. So I would spend that money on, I would absolutely spend at least $500 a month on AdWords and remarketing.
So Matt, what you're describing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's setting the school up, giving them a strong foundation to be able to do those extra things that you speak about that are so important, but most schools don't have the capacity to do that because it takes money. But doing those things and having them in place will allow those that come in to have a good experience with you, and eventually you can grow from that. Am I correct in understanding that?
You're absolutely correct. I mean, all this is predicated on the fact that you have a good program. right? So I can't help you with that. This is something that you have to do internally. I would hope that most Montessorians that are listening to this have pride in what they do, right? And are always looking to have a better and better program. That doesn't mean you're perfect, right? We're not a perfect school by any means, but that you have high standards for yourself and high standards for your practice and high standards for the experience of parents and children in your school. So this is all assuming that you have that. You have a place that people want to be. If you have that, then all you're trying to do is amplify that message. You're trying to let enough people know in your community that you exist and that you offer this very unique type of program for families and children, and that they need to come in and experience it for themselves.
Right. And I did just come across, Qasim wrote this back in March, the top 16 must-haves for every Montessori school website. It's on our blog actually, so you don't even have to be a member to access this. But it has such great information. If you're not even sure if your website is where it needs to be, check this document out. It'll take you 5 minutes to read, but you can really just go through. Let me see if I can add it in the chat. I'll add the link. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. I remember when Qasim wrote that, because we were kind of spitballing about what people need. That is a great place to start for sure. And again, we do have basically it is a free website. It's a great looking website that you can build and customize. You can make it, add your own pictures, put your own colors in there. The information on there is standardized, so you can use the description of the Montessori primary program, or you can actually change it and make little edits if you'd like it for yourself. Great way for people that don't have a website or don't have a website that they're proud of to have very, very quickly a solution for that problem.
Right. And what's neat about the template, and I think, I have to check in with Qasim and see where we offer that website. I'm not sure if it's the second or the third plane. But what it also does is set up the website to be able to track. So if you were to move through with Facebook ads or Google ads, you can actually track your conversions, and everything is set up and gets you ready for that, which is essential. There's a lot of behind the scenes things that need to happen for that. And that already comes with the template.
Any other questions from the group? Well, these are always fun to do, Deneen, and I'm happy to do them in the future if they provide value to people. Again, regardless of whether or not it's an Ask Us Anything office hours, you're always welcome to come on at 10:30 a.m. Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Thursday, regardless of the topic, to ask us questions that you have. Right? We are here for you. This is the time of the week that we have carved out to be able to relate to you. And I hope that we can help anybody out there, even if it's just our opinion about something. Happy to provide it for anything you're facing in terms of admissions and marketing. So we look forward to seeing you every Thursday at this time.
Right. And thanks, Matt, for your time. I know you're busy, and we so appreciate you carving out the time. We love to hear all your thoughts.
You're welcome. And everybody on the line, thanks for coming today. And everybody that's listening in the future, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.